Hey, welcome everybody to this episode of Business Basics. My name is Lee Ivan. I'm the firm owner of ActionCOACH Campus right here in Iowa City, and my special guest today, I'm so pleased she's with us, Tara Kronbaugh with Java House, based right here in Iowa City. Tara, it's been what, 26 years since you started your first store?
Yep, just turned 21. I was barely old enough to have a cocktail.
Wow. And why coffee? What was the inspiration to get into having Java House downtown Washington Street?
Yeah, good question. I grew up half-time in Santa Cruz, California. My parents split up at a young age. My brother went to Berkeley. And so I was about 4 or 5 years ahead of the game and went to a lot of dive warehouse places and drank coffee wearing Birkenstocks and big stocky wool sweaters.
Uh-huh.
So that's where it was created. And to be honest, didn't drink coffee when I started the company.
There you go. But you saw an emerging trend, right, Tara? I mean,
Yep, I was after the experience.
I think at the time you might have been the only coffee shop downtown. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct for us, for any old Iowa Cityans. We would have been the first real coffee house. There was ice cream, Great Midwestern ice cream. There were bakeries. There was a coffee cart.
Okay.
So my goal was to introduce, more of a straight up coffee house experience
Right.
along with coffee. Of course, I didn't drink coffee, so that part had to fall into place. But yeah, I was very fortunate. Jim Harris gave me a wonderful opportunity to work within a bookstore to get my feet wet, and things sort of took off from there.
Wow.
So,
Wow. And it's interesting you said you grew up in California. There's definitely a California vibe with Java House.
it was halftime. So I graduated from Kennedy in Cedar Rapids, so I'm still an Iowa girl.
Okay.
But when you have a dad in California and a mom in Iowa.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right. So you
So
get
yeah,
to bounce back between the two, I'm sure, for at least a visitation. So
yeah, it was good.
yeah. So what was the thought behind coffee back then? I mean, it's just, you were looking for a business. You knew you wanted to go into business, it sounds like.
Good question. I was a communication studies major. Wasn't exactly sure where I would go with that major. The story I've told before, and maybe as a repeat for some of you all, is I one day was sitting there eating a sandwich with my dad and decided I didn't really want to work for anyone. And I really loved coffee. And I sat in the sorority room at Iowa and told all my girlfriends, I think I'm going to open a coffee house. So the story goes, I looked through the schedule of courses and I saw the word entrepreneurship in the schedule of courses at Iowa. And I was pretty sure it meant open a business or something to do with a business. And so I showed up for the first day of class and the professor was kind enough to let me in.
That's great. The magic words there are, you didn't want to work for somebody else. Now, fast forward to today. Now, let's start back there. When you first started, how often were you actually in the shop itself working every day before you kind of got to that point to where you could kind of pull away from working in the business and work more on the business?
Let's see, I started at 21. I opened 2 stores within 6 months of each other and had my first baby at age 25. So I would say it was about 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Along the way, I opened a cafe in a library, which I wouldn't say was, unsuccessful, but it was not worth I was not good at managing a store in the Quad Cities. I didn't have my processes in place. So we just didn't renew the lease. It was a learning tool though. I backed up and went back to Iowa City and just continued on and then branched out in 98 to my 3rd location and sort of things blossomed from there.
Right. Right. But 2 stores within 6 months, that's a kind of a game changer.
Yep. And the story is I started the company on, a 1986 Ford Mustang 5.0 that earned me a lot of parking tickets and speeding tickets and some college debt. And I used some Pell Grants and I had about $12,000 to my name. And I wrote a business plan at the University of Iowa, submitted it for a TSB grant, was luckily awarded it. And my first business loan was for $40,000 at a farmer's bank.
Wow.
And they did not drink coffee. They had no idea. They had no idea what coffee was.
Oh
And they're
my
like,
word.
you want to do what? We are like open a truck stop coffee place? And so I did that in April and went back to them for more money in October. Somebody took some, I guess, some interest in me and somehow, some way.
Right. And it kept
Did it.
going. Yeah. It kept, the buzz on the street was back then, if I remember correctly, I was working downtown Iowa City, and the buzz on the street was, wow, just coffee. And then, of course, the bakery items that you have too, but you've made a huge success.
You know, times change. We're fast forward to 2020, whatever year that we are in. One of the funny stories that I do tell is I remember being at the post office and somebody saying, I hear you're going to open a coffee house. And I said, yeah. And they said, I also hear you're not going to be allowing smoking. And now, mind you, this was in 1993 and 4.
Right.
And I said, that's correct. And the guy looked at me and said, you are so going to fail.
Well,
I
thanks
didn't
for
know
that.
who this guy was. But it just goes to show that how times change and how we as entrepreneurs have to adapt and learn, and we have to pivot, right?
Right.
I was one of the first companies. I was the first company to advocate and apply for the outdoor patio permit with Iowa City, for example. You just sort of have to think on the cutting edge,
Right.
and be different. And I thought to myself, I don't want stinky cigarette smoke in my coffee houses with coffee beans and stenching the aroma.
Right.
So yeah, I was told I was going to fail, and I moved on.
Well, that's right. We don't take everybody's advice, do we, Tara? Now, when did you add in your own blend of coffee, your own roaster? When did you do that?
That took a really long time. I know some of the things that you help out with is business growth, and there was one. I would say there was 3 really big moments that really affected the company. The first one being when I was 25, I took a 3-week trip to Europe, and I read a book by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth. And on the train, trucking back and forth, on the train, and I came back to Iowa, and I decided that if I'm ever going to figure out how to grow this company, I have got to teach my staff members how to actually put toilet paper on the toilet paper dispenser. And how am I going to create that process? So that was sort of early on, 1998, early 2000, that I realized I needed to get procedures in place and start figuring this out. Another really big pivotal move, obviously, was opening up the commissary where we do all of our baking, things like that. We unfortunately experienced the flood of 2008. We lost 2 locations, but whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So to be honest, we didn't do the roastery till 2016.
Okay.
And so my philosophy at the time was I could buy good coffee. I could hand select from any vendor I wanted in the country. But I also wanted to make sure that whatever we did it the best. And so I waited quite some time to bring in the consultants. And I knew by the time I did it that I wanted to do it well. And so I didn't want to fall on my face. And so I brought the best of the best in. And we've been super fortunate. And now we're prospering.
That's great. That's fantastic. And you went with the pour over coffee from the beginning, right? Is that what you call it? Pour over?
Yep.
Drip?
Yep. Pour over coffee. That was a new thing in Iowa, but it was actually a new thing pretty much everywhere. Again, we in business generally do what's called a gap analysis. Yeah.
Very good.
We basically go through and we steal other people's ideas. So hadn't been in the West Coast, I was able to go through and snap a lot of photos, get kicked out of a lot of cafes at the time for snapping those photos, and essentially found this great concept that was out there. And I buddied up with that owner who was kind enough to let me buy that pour over bar. I purchased coffee from him for many, many years, brought that idea back to Iowa. We've been real successful with it. And then I'd say 7-8 years ago, it became sort of a norm within the industry.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it was fine. I have looked up Wikipedia before, and it has said that the first pour over bar was in the Java House of Iowa City. Not true.
Well, you mentioned something, Tara, and I want to touch on that too. And it's so important for a business owner's mindset. You went from 1 to 2 locations within 6 months. You've added on, and there is no magic time, is there? I mean, what is it? Is it? Of course, we look at our numbers, but when you get ready to add on that next location, that next service, what is it you're doing? What are you looking for?
You know, when we initially talked, I was thinking about this. Over the years, I've been to a lot of seminars and visited, and somebody once told me that the magic number was 3.
Hmm.
Now, granted, at that time, I think I had 10 or 11 locations. But with all due respect, when I look back, I think 3 locations is a pivotal number. Business owners can generally jump from 1 to 2, or they can wear multiple hats for 1 to 2. When you get to 3, you either make it or you break it.
Right.
And you either figure out how to make it on number 3, because you definitely can't be 3 places at once, or you fail.
Right.
And so without any experience whatsoever, we are only able to expand by failing miserably, figuring out why we failed, and then figuring out how to create that process so it never happens again.
Right.
So the 3rd location sort of allowed me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, you fail forward. I mean, it's a learning moment, but you don't give up, right? It's like,
you basically you cry for about a day, and then you say, okay, what opportunity can I find in this situation? And you look for the opportunities and really get a look at what you could pivot on and make the best out of nothing. And it's really, once you get by that sorrow of, oh my gosh, we just screwed up. If we can get by that,
right.
then you seem to move forward. And if you seek the opportunity and what you can be doing better, then so be it. Certainly we were stubborn. One of the things that 2008 taught me was that we were actually one of the largest bakery facilities in Iowa City, other than maybe like the Hy-Vees, of course. I never knew that until we were getting ready to flood, and I couldn't find anywhere to put all of our frozen product and all of our refrigeration product. And I realized that, holy smokes, this is why we bake, because we cannot depend on another company that we're not vested in to do our product the way we want it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I need to gradually get to that point. I need to be able to control my product so that our guest is getting a consistent product at all times.
Wow.
So there's a certain point in each company that you have to make that decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as your delivery person forgets to send you product and you've got 5 locations waiting on it, you realize real quick, time to do it yourself.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we run a bakery facility, putting out several thousands of items a day, and most people don't even realize that we do that.
Oh my goodness.
We make 50 gallons of broccoli cheese soup on Mondays, or I don't know, maybe Mondays and Tuesdays. So again, why do we do that? To control the product.
Exactly. Your quality standards. That's why.
Yeah, we think.
But you have to.
But yes, those were the big pivotal years. 2008, and then of course the roastery was definitely the last pivotal year, and of course the biggest investment that I've ever made in my entire life.
Wow. And you're buying your beans from a source, right?
Yep, certainly. We buy anywhere from 3 to 6 to 9 months out.
Okay.
You buy on contract. You work with importers. You work with, some green coffee farmers. You build relationships. And you really learn who the relationships are when you have something like a pandemic occur. And we've been super fortunate that we've had really good connections and ties on the East and West Coast to get our product in through our ports. Because just like, fruit, strawberries, lettuce, I could be chasing lettuce one day because the farmers can't get to the fields. And the next day I could be chasing green coffee not landing into San Francisco
Oh my goodness.
because, they have the same issues trying to get into port.
Right.
So we deal with the same issues that everybody else does. Like, we are one big, massive troubleshooter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At least I am.
No, you are,
I don't know.
you have to be. And when people ask me why would I want to be in business by myself, it's like, I get the mentality of folks that want to work for somebody else. I appreciate that, but as a business owner, we're still working. We're just working on different problems. You know what I mean? We're not focused on maybe customer service directly like you would be if you were across the counter. But as the owner of the business, you are problem solving all day long.
Yes, I used to say I've become really good at three things. Fixing light bulbs, understanding how to replace the flapper in the toilet, and going to replace vacuum bags because they seem to fill up the vacuum bags at any given time of the day. And I'm like, "God, why is the owner doing this?" And you realize, where's my procedure? So now you can bet my training procedures in the food handling section has how to replace the vacuum bag.
Yes,
Done.
all of it. Exactly right. Especially with multiple locations, you want to leverage your efforts, right? Those employee handbooks, those procedures, all for a consistent delivery. It has to happen.
It is. And when you talk about multiple locations, I know that my direct manager reports to me. They think I'm absolutely insane when I tell them that you are only permitted to buy from this list and these procedures, and every store will have the same vacuum, and every store will have the same product list. And if I go into a store and I see a bottle of Windex, which is not on our product list, then you can bet that I'm going to go to them and I'm going to chase them down and go, why? And I'm going to ask them, where did the process break down? Because it always ends up costing you money when you're not following process. And
so true.
Rule of thumb is lots of money savings can be had if you can save in a lot of little ways. And for me, it's creating that process where people can recognize the mistakes so we don't do it again.
Right.
So
and you spend a good chunk of your day probably looking at your numbers too. I mean, you have to. You're tracking expenses. You're tracking those, A&R reports. You have to.
Yep, COVID has taught you a lot about that. At any given time, we use Google Drive like lots of other big companies, and we update our master purchasing list with 3 to 4 vendors at any given time. And I simply go in once a week and I cross out, you are not allowed to buy from this vendor because they are too expensive this week.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I know there's way better processes out there. I'm probably still a little old fashioned, but I can promise you that I'm buying cheese from somebody else for the next few weeks because cheese here is too expensive.
Right.
And it sounds stupid, but it teaches your staff to recognize the importance. But B, if we don't do that, then what happens?
Well, right. We have a profit margin. We have to maintain it. And even just a small dip is a small dip, right?
We do. And with all due respect, so we run our entities literally on 4 order forms, and they're on Google Drive, and we adjust them accordingly. And every manager literally only has to order from 4 separate drives. Mm-hmm. And every manager is required to order the same exact product. And just like a franchise probably is, we update what and where and what quantities they will buy, and their ordering is quite easy. During mm-hmm. COVID, I can tell you my gas expense to the management team was a little high because we kept running around. We're like, where can we find cheese today?
Oh my goodness.
So it happens. It happens. So what can I say? But we work hard at it.
Oh yeah. And now tell me, what other impact did COVID-19 have? I mean, other than the obvious, downtown Iowa City, the students all disappeared. What other impacts did it have?
I would say at 26 years, this is a great question, because for me, I was fortunate that we were in a financial position to be able to tower through. It hasn't always been like that, so I can relate. But one of the things that it teaches you is you have to figure out how to pivot super quickly. And the example that I give is I was up for days and weeks fine tuning our curbside delivery. And I would sit on the phone in my pajamas on Saturday morning with the owner of this software platform going, wait, it's not working quite right. Wait. And I mean, this is what we're doing, right? And then I'm testing it all out and I'm sending it to people. And fortunately we had a platform pretty much in place, but you know, you ask for things like, we want to be your beta test site. I will call you up and let you know everything that's working and not working. What can I do to help to get this going more quickly? Stuff like that. We were working, it's a common phrase in the food industry right now that us executives are working twice as hard for half the reward.
Right.
And it is true because we have had to adapt so quickly by every daily change that we don't know what's, I mean, I'm sure if I get online and look at the governor's comments today, there was probably something new I have to adapt to.
Probably.
And then your staff, and then you know what your biggest thing is, then you have a staff of 150 people and they all have a different interpretation of how things should be done.
Yes.
And then you have guests who some are really up here and some are really down here, and you have to learn how to balance, and you have to learn how to respectfully just listen and understand that they are anxious. And I think the biggest thing COVID has taught us is how much people can panic, and that our job is to give you your coffee and let you relax. And just understand that if you're getting yelled at as a staff member, that they could just be really anxious.
Right.
And teaching your staff just to listen.
Right. So what discoveries did you find during COVID-19? I mean, this has changed the way people do business, the way they run their lives.
True. I've discovered that technology is going to play an extremely pivotal part of growing any company from here on out. That if we do not get on the bandwagon and keep up with technology, we got lazy, you know, or complacent in certain areas. And with the daily changes, you have to be able to, you know, maximize technology to do a better job each day. So I've discovered a lot. And, you know, we've had some positive things like, you know, our payroll numbers, for example, are actually better in check than they were pre-COVID. Now, I'm not suggesting we're grossing more money. That's not the point.
No, right.
But what I am suggesting is that we've been able to do a better job at teaching our management team, okay, wait, you were out of whack last week. You need to adjust by 6 hours here or whatever. And honestly, we did really well for quite some weeks. And so we have some positive that maybe we'll be closing at 6 or 7 o'clock now for quite some time, but in the end, it's probably going to help our end number.
Sure.
So that's positive. You know, it still isn't going to help the downtown district where you've got people paying rents that are quite exorbitant, and we need those numbers to be able to pay that.
Right.
So I do feel for that segment. You've got the bar segment that's losing football teams. Or football games or basketball games, and these smaller businesses that, you know, I look out for those organizations. And that, you know, as a business owner and a property owner downtown, I think that's probably where I'm the most scared for them, is that maybe.
Right.
You know, our drive-through saved our butt in North Liberty. But, you know, everything happens for a reason, right?
Right. Sometimes we're not sure what the reason is while we're in it, but we look back, right?
Yeah. No, we've learned a lot, and I will say I'm extremely happy with the staff that have stuck it out, and it's really taught me a lot about employees. I don't want to say employees because they're really my staff and my management team. You know, I would say we got back almost every single person that we had to potentially, you know, and it really taught me a lot about having a good, you know, integrity and having them help out when need be. And I think that's when communities come together.
I agree. And I think you mentioned it earlier too, that especially with your staff, with your mid-level management and your employees, how important communication is. It just, as things change, just let them know. And you're human too. We're all human. And it's like, look, I'm going through things, guys, and I got to share with you what's happening because, right?
Exactly, exactly. And you're always, you have so much misinformation out there. And so there's been many times that I have to stop them in their tracks and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I need, 5 hours. I will put together a plan, but until then you're on hold.
Right.
Probably biggest lesson in life and business is if you don't know the answer with, let me get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you say the wrong decision, you're going to probably kick yourself. I've made a lot of mistakes over the years doing that.
Yeah.
Not waiting for the right answer at the right time.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice, I think, for other people maybe just starting out, but you have to make a decision, right? You have to get to that point.
getting back to the point, and sometimes people say 26 years, how do you do it? It doesn't feel like 26 years, but I really do feel like no matter whether you start tomorrow as a company or you're 26 years in business, we certainly operate to our best success when you operate based on your integrity.
Mm-hmm.
There are times that my management team may make a decision that I clearly was not in agreement with, but I ultimately own the company and I have to have their back and I have to stand up for it. And that's part of me going, well, I'll be creating a process so that doesn't happen again. But the reality is that when it comes to your guest or it comes to your management team or it comes to your, your vendors, your bankers, I would say that probably, well, I know my banker would say, Tara, we're pretty sure that we've stuck it out with you because you have integrity. In other words, you do what you say you're going to do. But that's the thing. You have to maintain those relationships. And in a small community like Iowa City, you do not ruffle anyone's bridges, even if they make you mad. And you can certainly choose to make no comment if they make you mad, but you do not ruffle bridges. And especially being in coffee, we have tried extremely hard to make sure that we are the house of conversation. And the integrity component of running our company is so big. We don't take sides. We say we are neutral. We allow everybody to come in and speak their voice. And my staff is just simply there to serve the coffee and be good listeners. And you can bet in Iowa City that sometimes I have a hard time getting them to be quiet.
I'm sure.
But that's the thing. That's the idea on being successful, that you don't sway either way.
Right.
You have to really have that and do what you say you're gonna do. And
That's
we
true.
won't make it otherwise. So all right.
All right. So what piece of advice do you have for that single shop business owner who wants to eventually expand? I won't say franchise, but just expand or branch out. What's that mindset? What's that mentality piece that you used for yourself to say, look, I want to be bigger than just one store location?
So once you get beyond you being the active sole operator, meaning the owner, I will say from the day I started off with a staff handbook. So that's certainly the most important component. I am proud to say that with the exception of a very small $100 mistake, like $100 thing, the first unemployment claim that we have ever submitted and actually agreed to was COVID. And that is in 26 years.
That's amazing.
So with that said, that was because number one, we do what we say we're going to do. And number two, we have an extremely good handbook that we are very methodical. We follow a process. And anytime that a staff member should file unemployment, I could always win the investigation because we had it in writing.
Right.
So in order for you to be able to move forward, you have to get your stuff in writing. You have to follow a process. And more importantly, you've got to get your management team to get behind you on it. And then when they mess up, you go, oh my gosh, you totally just messed up. It's all about accountability. So getting by that first store is a handbook first, and then literally identifying the processes by which you're going to get bottlenecked on. You can only wear so many hats, right?
Mm-hmm.
So first and foremost, make sure you have done everything yourself once. Make sure you know how to read a financial statement. Make sure you know how to order. Make sure you know how to do everything once. Then decide which things bring you down and take up too much of your time. Create the process, whether it's a relationship through ordering or a ordering process. I don't care what it is. Create that process, delegate it, and have that person report back to you, and just start trickling down the list. You go down the list. We have trainer cards for every department in our company that are laminated front to back. And if I go into a store and see something being prepared incorrectly, I can easily say, whoa, 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 where's that trainer card? And I can double check, was it corporate that messed up? And I should say company, or was it the staff member being lazy? So if you want to make it from 1 to 2, write the process in place to be able to identify, was a staff member being lazy and did not prepare that to your liking because they were lazy, or was it because you did not put the process in place to teach them how to do it well?
Right.
If you get by that, then you'll be successful. And then when they're lazy, you go, okay, you are now written up. Okay, you're on probation. Now you're done.
Right. Yeah.
So there you have it.
Follow the system. I mean, and the reason for it, writing it all up, the reason for the process is that consistent delivery, right?
We try. It's not perfect, but we try. You know, I go to the office and I have my director of coffee telling me something was being made incorrectly. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You signed off on that trainer card. You're out of luck till we update it. So, but you know, we do a lot of testing. I'm rebuilding our training platform right now, and rebuilding all the test taking. And funny enough, I'm the one that does that. I'm the one that's putting in the videos. I'm the one that's putting in the, you know, do I love it or do I hate it? Not sure yet. However, we want to walk away and give them that accountability to be able to know that if they took the test, simple things, allergens would be a great example. You know, do you think we ever tell our staff members, yeah, go ahead and sell that product to that guest if they have an allergy and are not quite sure what's in that product? So we don't tell them that, of course not. But do you think we have a test question that says, if a guest has an allergy, and then when they sell it to them saying, I don't know, you're like, wait a second. It's stuff like that. Right. So that's how you, and the key as a business owner to move on to store 3 and 4 and 5 is to recognize where your process is weak, fix it one step at a time, and take it week by week. Most people will tell you, I'll do store walkthroughs for 1 week. Next week, I might be balancing my checkbook. The next week, I might be working on training. The next week, I might be, you know, doing a store build out. We as business owners never know what our weeks will bring.
No.
This week I'm writing training materials on a new software platform that I want to beat up, but that's where that technology is going to be pertinent.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
okay. One last question for you, Tara. Tell me what's inspiring to you today.
You know, I would say the inspiration that I have, it's kind of twofold. Number one is I really enjoy entrepreneurship, and, you know, as a matter of fact, sit on the advisory board for JPEC. And I don't do it so much because I'm, you know, former student out of JPEC. I do it because every time I walk away, even though it's a pain in the butt to get there because my day is packed, I walk away feeling like, dang, I can do this. In other words, meeting new people and meeting people that are smarter than myself, and being able to take my ideas to the next level is my inspiration. And then more importantly, watching some of this generation of kids who, mine are now 22 and 19, who come to me and go, Mom, try this. Or my staff say, try this. That brings me some happiness. I will tell you, the day that I get to go into my own stores and actually sit down and drink coffee and not interrupt my guest and say, give me one moment while I go fix this. That's going to be a tough day.
Yeah.
Because I'm horrible at it. So I don't do any meetings at my stores.
No. You're kind of close to the fire if you would do that. It's hard to sit. It's just so hard to sit down at your own store. It's like, where's the vacuum cleaner?
Yeah. Or pick that straw up or whatever, and I know I can't get too far off subject, but there's a lot to say for being an entrepreneur, you have to have leaders and you have to have followers. They're both needed. But I do think that we as business owners oftentimes will see that our kids will pick up those intuitive everyday skills just because their whole entire life they watched their mother while they sat in the car for an hour because we said, I'll be right back. and then number two, they go into the store and you're like, I got to go do this real quick. Can you run and bust all the tables, pick up all the straws? And they're literally going, Mom, can I please just get dropped off? But it's in the end, it's those teaching moments. That's what inspires me, is making these kids understand accountability.
So true. So true.
That's probably too big of an answer.
No, that's a perfect answer. Thank you for that.
Oh.
All right, I'm gonna pause this. Hang on. Thank you everybody for watching Business Basics today. Again, my special guest was Tara Crombaugh with Java House. Very successful business story. Tara, thank you for joining us today. I really do appreciate it.
Super great. Thank you for having me, Lee.
You bet.